Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Modern Brewer podcast with me, your host, Chris Lewington. This is part 2 of our deep dive into sensory. In this episode, we're going to talk through 7 different flavours and taints commonly found in beer, what they are, how to describe them, and where they originate from. Listening to part 1 isn't actually necessarily essential, but it is highly recommended, as it will help you develop methods of actually catching these flavours and taints, which is pretty essential, to be honest. But before we get into it, I'd like to take a moment to talk about Brewing Trade. Brewing Trade is revolutionising the way UK and EU brewers are buying hops. Instead of paying full price for hops, Brewing Trade customers can purchase hops directly from other breweries' surplus requirements, meaning buyers get much better prices with exactly the same quality hops as purchasing from the spot market. Saving on an average of 25% of their hop costs, Brewing Trade users are using their savings to purchase newer lab equipment, saving up for new fermenters, and investing in staff training without having to spend any new cash. Shipping on Brewing Trade is cheaper than the spot market purchases, and the minimum order quantity is often just 5 kilos. Be a part of the hop revolution and set up your free Brewing Trade account on www.brewingtrade.com or check out the show notes for a quick access link. So let's get straight into part 2 on sensory with the amazing Jethro Holman. All right, welcome back everyone. Jethro is with me again.
Oh, sorry.
The long pause was on purpose.
I was completely looking out the window. I thought you were doing a bit. I didn't realise I was getting introduced again.
So Jethro's with us.
Oh, hey, what's up? How's it going? Really nice to be here.
I'm not even going to edit that out.
Yeah.
So we're on the next episode. If you haven't listened to the first one, please go back and listen to as we set the scene on everything you need to know about sensory as a whole. And in this episode, we're kind of going to go over some, 5, 6, a few key flavors that you can detect in sensory, what they are, how to describe them, and where do they originate from, and what you can do if you find it and hit that big panic button.
And more, I think, what it good in terms of like, these are all things that occur and that they become conversation pieces and action points. You know, like it's not just a game to smell them, like this is real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like, oh cool, yeah, I got Butyric Acid, that's awesome.
Yeah, oh man, you got 90%. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess we can go
fire some over.
I think we just start firing some over. You know, I've already mentioned.
Maybe that's why I was looking out the window. I was like, oh, I'm about to be put on the spot.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I mean, yeah, I think these are like pretty common ones. I say let's start with maybe some more hop-based ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like what's Isovaleric and.
If you got Isovaleric, then you want to ring up probably your hop supplier. So not me, obviously.
Unless their name is Jethro and they work for Locker and
I only sell the highest quality hops from Oregon. Come on. Isovaleric is produced like by hop breakdown basically. So poor storage or poor cold storage of your hops when you've got them, and it can also occur within your beer as well as your beer ages. But I would say it's probably, you know, you're buying some nice cheesy leaf hops or something. And leaves are awesome, I'm not saying that, but it tends to happen a little bit more just because of you know, the way they're stored or whatever. You can also get Isovaleric from some wild yeasts as well, but that's less common. Isovaleric, just to quickly talk about what that would be, the common descriptor is Parmesan cheese or sweaty gym socks, which seems mad, but you do get it in beers, and it's not always a bad thing. Like I've had some really great, really strong British IPAs, like proper cork and wire IPAs, and they've smelled of cheese, and I've been like, this is fantastic. The bitterness is absolutely through the roof. I'm not saying I drink those beers regularly, but Isovaleric isn't always a bad thing, but generally it means that you've got either poor quality hops, old hops that have not been stored properly, or sometimes your DO can affect the way you're storing your beer and your hops are aging, you know, faster. So yeah, I would say, you know, kind of things to do, contact your hop supplier, but I would also say that something like hop characteristics that come from aged beer are another reason. You know, previously we were talking about shelf life testing. That's the kind of thing I would track, is thinking about your negative hop attributes that come over time and seeing how quickly they occur in said brand. Yeah, I used to make a 6.4% IPA, and you could see it so quickly, and it just in that particular beer style, whereas our 4.2% session IPA that may have had the same suppliers hop in it was not as prevalent, as quickly. I did a shelf life test once we brewed at 3 batches of the same beer style, and they had different. The actual trial was about different hop products and the way they came. But part of the trial was that we tasted the same beer every single week, blind, refrigerated and ambient. So we had the same batches in the fridge, same batches ambient, and then we tasted them in panel every single week, blind, so the tasters never knew what was happening. So we had real world tracking of line data and seeing negative hop attributes like Isovaleric appear on ambient shelves compared to the refrigerated is unreal. We talk about it and we kind of laugh like, oh yeah, keep it cold. But yeah, something like that's going to come over time. But yeah.
And if you're selling into supermarkets, which is quite common, that's a big one, right? Because I don't see many fridges in those supermarkets where beer stored.
Or they're open and there's no door on, which is insane, by the way. It should be illegal to have fridges without doors on.
Yeah, it is actually mad, isn't it?
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's it really. Isovaleric is probably quite a quick one. That's just it's more hops. There's less investigation needed, I think.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple one to start with. Yeah. I think that would be, as you said, I think that's one thing I really want to probably get away or take away from this, is that not every single thing is an off flavor. As you said, some flavors, I think we're definitely going to cover Diacetyl in this, but that's by a lot of craft brewers are considered an off flavor, and it's like, I want Diacetyl in my beer, but actually some people it's a beer style, it's a beer flavor, and it's generally in there for a reason. So I think sometimes when you smell, I think it's important when you're assessing other people's beer that you're not always holding it to the same standards you hold your own.
Very much so. I find I really get annoyed with people who are overly critical. I know that sounds stupid because the whole job is to be critical, but in my past career I spent so long assessing beers or tasting beers that I for a little while got lost and I stopped drinking beers. And there are many positive attributes to be found, and we're so off topic already. I love that. And it's important to look for positives as well, and to be tactful with brewers. Do you know what I mean? Tell them if they've got something really wrong, but don't sit there and bollock them all the time for it. Anyway, let's go on. We'll talk about it.
So what else we keep on? Maybe the hop line to some extent. What about Macaptain?
Macaptain. There's all sorts of names, but we'll say Macaptain is how we used to train on it. It comes. Hops is one of the ways it comes from. It's a file, so you're going to get it in hops that have lots of files. I'm not going to discuss what files are on this podcast because we don't have anywhere near enough time for that. But just quickly before we talk about Macaptain and hops, it can also come from, it's like an autolysis aroma as well. So if you are leaving your beer sat on your yeast for too long, not getting it off, there is an aroma that can come. But just quickly before we talk about where Macaptain comes from, the common flavour descriptor for it is bin juice, which is really pleasant. So the aroma when you lift your bin bag up before you take it to the bin, which is not pleasant, and it's something that once you've trained on this and you've had it at a high level, you get to know the aroma properly, and then you lower down your threshold of it. You start to smell it on many different things. Like there are some particularly high file hops that are really popular that just by nature of the way they're used, you often get Macaptain on. And some bits have been spoiled for me on learning this aroma once I gave it a negative connotation in my mind. That's also important when you're thinking about flavours, is you're giving these things negative names often. I'm describing something as bin juice, when actually what I'm describing is somebody's favourite West Coast IPA. Do you know what I mean? And they never even thought about bin juice. But if I was to tell them, then I might have spoiled it in their mind a little bit. But Macaptain, when it comes to hops, you're going to get from some higher file hops. I'm just going to name a few, but like Nelson, Citra, like Mosaic, quite a lot. But that's not to say it's bad. But you'll find in the way you use it. So maybe if I'd experiment once you kind of learn what Macaptain, the aroma is, if you're trying to do something crazy with biotransformation, or if you're like doing different temperatures when you're dry hopping and whatnot, you might find that it becomes more present in your product. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Am I right in saying...
Have you encountered Macaptain in your brewing
Oh,
life?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd say it's been one of those compounds that's been a scrounge from my career. I really, really, really struggled with this one. This is one of those things, like, you know, there's that saying, ignorance is bliss. I really genuinely believe in Macaptain, ignorance might be bliss. It's a hefty compound to get your head around, and once it's in, it's very difficult to get out. And in fact, I would go as far as to say it's extremely difficult to get out. And the origins are also not easy to... I mean, the yeast autolysis, fairly easy, but it also depends a lot on your dry hopping schedule and how you dry hop. So if you're using high mechanical action to dry hop, you know, I think we used a hop nick. I don't know if anyone's seen those before. It has a macerator on the pump. And it resucks the whole beer. So it is absolutely churning everything up. Causes high yeast autolysis. Then you're stuck with this, like, now you've got this yeast autolysis problem and you haven't got long. So then how long do you leave the hops on for? If you're leaving the hops on with yeast for, I don't know, over 72 hours, then we were finding big problems. And this is where this compound has always been, like, tough to get your head around, I think, from my perspective. We didn't manage to effectively get it out by there, but we had it on some beers.
I've had it. The brewery that we're talking about, I have had it on so many of their beers. I actually stopped drinking their beer for this reason.
Yeah.
But it's obviously super popular, so people don't mind.
I think, and I want to ask you, like, how do you assess to get Macaptain? Because for me, if I'm at a pub, for example, I'll get a beer that's got a lot of Macaptain on, and the first 2 sips, I'm having a great time. I think this beer is super hoppy. I get it to my nose first, I'm like, oh yeah, here we go. It's got loads of aroma. And by about sip 3, I'm like, boy, I'm beginning to get a bit of Macaptain. By the end of the pint, I almost don't want to finish it. And I've never had a compound that goes so from, like, I don't know if it's because I'm not tuned in at the time or something. It always catches me when I'm out. I go, oh, this is amazing, great beer. And then I go like, ooh, that's getting worse. And that's getting worse.
So say, like, a hop that will give you a lot of Macaptain, I'm just going to say Citra because it's in every beer in the world ever. And it's a beautiful hop, and it's going to have so many things hitting you at the same time with your first nose in moment, your first enjoyable moment, and then you're going to sit there for a while, and it's going to warm up a little bit in your glass, and the aroma's going to you know, prevail through, and then you pick up a little bit, and then once you've twigged, you're like, oh my goodness. And it doesn't matter, all those beautiful citrus notes there that you're just your brain tunes in on what's there on that. So yeah, a good solution if you find you're getting Macaptain in your beers a lot, once you know what you're looking for, is just as you were talking, Chris, you consider your dry hopping schedule, or just how you're doing it on your processes. And also it's a really good opportunity to look around and try different hops. Like it's often hop variety specific that you're going to get more of it. So
even to the sense of per batch. So if you got, let's say, we'll take Citra as the example. If you've got batch A, B, and C, are you're going to get more in A, less in B, and medium in C, for example?
Yeah, I mean the lot number maybe. So it might be something worth, if you can chat to your hop supplier, say you're getting this problem, say that you think it might be your, I'm not going to say a particular brand because that's a certain supplier or any supplier. Say this hop that I'm using has, I keep finding this Macaptain. I've assessed the way I'm handling my beer. Can I have another lot and try it with the new lot and see what happens? And try a different crop year. You know, like I've been using crop year 22. Have a little go with some 21. See what happens. And you may find that the issue's gone. So it's hassle your supplier.
Always. There's a good episode on that, am I right?
Yeah, you're not wrong, man. Andy from...
there we go. The knowledge is there.
Andy from Lallerman, a good friend of mine. Yeah, people underuse us as suppliers, like knock on our doors and don't complain because we're nice people, but we're there to provide you with resources and make changes and help you make better beer. So yeah, if you're getting Macaptain, sit down with your mechanical processes first, but also think about your ingredients.
There was also a really good MBAA podcast on Macaptain with Dogfish Head.
So wow, that's cool.
Yeah. Because again,
days,
as I said,
days.
we had this problem, and it landed on my lap. And let me tell you, I probably read every resource that was
Yeah.
available on Macaptain. And yeah, they linked theirs to Whirlpool Trub.
Okay.
For people who listen in the States, I realised you call it Trub, which was a real eye opener or ear opener for me. I was like, the hell is Trub? They called Trub. Anyway,
Sounds like something from Lord of the Rings.
yeah, Trub, man.
Yeah.
So. And they were linking it to the Whirlpool Trub being brought over. So what they were doing is in the first 6, 12 or 24 hours of fermentation, they were dropping out that cold break that sits at the bottom of the fermenter. And they found it really dropped their perceived levels of Macaptain, which I found really interesting. It didn't work for me in my case. We also have fermentations that were ripping. So, 24 hours later, you were just dumping beer at that point. So, I think mechanical action and time on hops, I think, is a really a good way of assessing Macaptain. But it's a curse, that one. It's a really, and as I said, once it's in, it's kind of in.
There was a brewery that early on in my craft beer life, brewery from South East London, that I wore the hat. I was that much of a fan. And then I started to realise that it was in every single one of their beers, and I was like, fuck, I can't wear the hat anymore. And they'll remain nameless.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, exactly. But there's some people who, I've been at the pub with who will have the same pint that I'm having. And it was actually one from the brewery that I worked at, and I was like, oh my God, it's got Macaptain in. I was stressing about it, obviously, because I was, and they were like, oh, this is a great pint. I'm having a great, this is a delicious pint of beer. And actually, on a lot of double IPAs, for example, I think it's quite common.
The more you're getting the hops in, the more you're...
It's quite common.
I'd almost say Russian roulette's got more bullets in the chamber.
What a lovely way of putting it. Yeah, I think that's it's a really good compound, Captain, to both find and then eradicate if that's what you want.
Listen to some podcasts about. Love that Master Brewers podcast.
Yeah, it is the best.
Second best.
It is the best. One thing about Macaptain isn't the actual compound itself in natural gas?
Yeah, they use it in natural gas, so they put it in natural gas, odourless gas.
Yeah.
So that you can smell it.
So that smell is Macaptain?
Yeah. So, they're just for safety.
Yeah.
Because some natural gases are odourless, so they add odour, because, the threshold is, really works for it. You're now going to start asking me about natural gas and that.
Yeah.
But I do know that.
Modern gas engineer. New podcast coming out.
God, yeah, can't wait to be on that one.
All right, so let's move to one of the big ones, Diacetyl. What is it? How do you describe it? Where's it originate from? And how do
it cringes me out talking about Diacetyl so much, because it's we have to, because it's so important and it happens in our beers and we talk about it all the time, and it's the first one that everyone wants to talk about when they talk about sensory, because it's so spoken about. I mean, we'll go over it really, the flavour descriptors are going to be like butterscotch or butter popcorn, margarine, or fake dairy products, vape pens, and it also has a mouthfeel as well, which people often overlook. So if you've got, and sometimes as well, because Diacetyl does have some confusions with other just natural processes within beer or malt profiles, but Diacetyl has, particularly at higher levels, has I call it a slick mouthfeel. So if you're tasting some Diacetyl and you rub your tongue along the roof of your mouth once you've swallowed, it's kind of oily, ironically, because it's like buttery. But yeah, it has a slick mouthfeel. So if you're really looking for it, that's part of the test, which is tough because when you do D-test assessments, you normally are sharing, so you don't really want to all be drinking out of the same cup. But we'll leave you to do that. So yeah, that would be the descriptor. It's produced by yeast during fermentation. It's not a bad thing at all. When it's prevalent, when it's not prevalent, when it's needed, when it's there.
Yeah.
It's a bad thing in finished product, but it's going to exist during the process, and a good brewer has their rest afterwards or whatever, and they have time to get rid of it. There's also enzyme products you can buy now, for example, ALDC, which will stop it from being there anyway. So a lot of people are using those. If you want to do that, realistically, you don't need to use them, but some people do. Diacetyl can also be produced with some lactic acid producing bacteria as well. So it's not only it doesn't only come about during or at the end of fermentation. it can come from spoilage in pack product. That's rare though.
Yeah.
It also can come with the times that I actually tend to see it the most on the market now, particularly because I tend to spend time with people brewing hoppier beers. It can sit alongside your hop creep, because that's another stage of fermentation that you're not getting your rest on. So basically, because it's in a can at that point. So sometimes when you've got breweries that are struggling with hop creep, they're also having diacetyl in their beer in the end, so it's like a double whammy here. This is a minor point, so in which case consider trying to fix that. Maybe think about other hop products, CGX or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll tell you a story about how I learned about hop creep and diacetyl the hard way. So we were doing the exact sensory training that you were talking about, and it was day 2, so everyone was like, well involved, thinking, especially me, thinking we were really good at it. And we go out the room. If I remember from the first episode, Jethro said basically you get like, I don't know, remember like 8 to 10 samples, and there's a reference sample, and it's usually, your beer at that time. And we went out the room. We did the compounds. Went out the room. Oh no, we came in for the second round, and everyone picks up the reference beer and goes, puts a hand up, excuse me, to the person who's running the sensory. You've clearly mixed this up. Like, this sample is been spiked with diacetyl. I think you've accidentally put it as the reference sample. And they're like, no. And just like, no. Trust me, smell it. They're like, I've smelled it. And you're like, that horror of realization moment of, oh my God. We used to assess beer before it went out. But, just rarely did it when it was out. And dry hop creep is, I guess anyone who's hopping beer or dry hopping beer has probably experienced it in some capacity. And what I very quickly learned after that session was dry hop creep's really important for diacetyl production. So when you get that creep and you get that extra fermentation, you get a big spike in alpha-acetaldehyde, which is the precursor for diacetyl. And yeast would normally metabolize that, turn into diacetyl, and then turn it into acetone. And that would be the one that you can't smell. And when you've dry hopped, your nitrogen levels are super low in your yeast. It's really not healthy. It's not having a great time. It doesn't want to be fermenting this, so it takes an extremely long time to start to actually metabolize this. And you have alpha-acetaldehyde in your beer. Now, alpha-acetaldehyde is not, you can't smell it. So you smell it you pass it going into BBT or whatever, and it gets canned. And that will then turn into acetyl, and there's no yeast to metabolize it. And you'll just be stuck with pretty severe levels of diacetyl in your beer if you don't want it there, which we didn't at the time. So we learned that the hard way, and it was a real eye-opener. And again, it's one of those reasons why sensory training and sensory on a whole is so important, and measuring sensory throughout the process and after the process. Because everything can be rosy when you're putting it into the can. You think this is going to be the best beer ever, and then by the time 1 month, 3 months, as Jethro isn't saying, you can end up with something you didn't anticipate, because at the time there was no way of detecting that through the sensory methods you were doing. That's why I always recommend for anyone I speak to now to do that forced VDK test or forced diacetyl test.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we called it before especially if you ever see dry hop creep, you have to be doing those, because it's the only way of detecting the alpha-acetaldehyde sort of levels. And again, if you have that problem, there's enzymes to sort this out these days.
Although they tend to only work further upstream.
Yeah, they do help, but you have to use them quite a lot more than because it's your pH is low. It's not the perfect environment for this end. There's not where it was designed to be. But also at the same time, once the yeast kind of settles out, the LDC goes with it. So if you put it in, let's say, the wort stream, it won't be as effective in the dry hopping afterwards, because it's no longer in the enzyme doesn't exist as much in the beer or the wort if you put it in. So that's some dry hop creeps are really a really good one. And for anyone, I will actually link in the show notes how to do a VDK test, because anyone can do it. It doesn't actually require any lab equipment, just a way of heating it up.
Yeah, just not in the microwave. Literally, microwave will flash it off. Like, if you see people do it, it's completely pointless. So
I haven't ever done that, but I didn't know that you shouldn't do that.
You shouldn't do it. I've seen people tell me they're doing it in a microwave, and I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, so a hot plate and a stirrer, or even just It's like between 60 and 70 degrees C. So
yeah, for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes. So I always tended to do a little bit longer just so that the sample could heat up while it was in the hot water. But
yeah, we used to measure the liquid when it was hit
exactly.
a certain temperature, 10 minutes of that, or 20 minutes, or 30. I mean, I don't think you can really.
Yeah, I actually did in the brewery we did. I literally just sat there with a thermometer numerous times and worked out how long it took for the liquid to heat up in whatever our container was, which is a glass jar, and then I added that onto the 10 minutes. So I told every brewer that came in to do it for 12.5 minutes or whatever, but just so they didn't have to sit and measure it every time. But yeah, that's a million sites that have got the method of it online.
I'll link one just for everyone. I'll vet it and link one. But yeah, I think if let's say you don't dry hopping or something and you're still getting diacetyl and you don't want it there, there's other areas it could come from. I think often fan is linked to diacetyl production. I generally think your fan's probably going to be okay in an all malt beer. So when you start using adjuncts, that you should start looking at your COA, for example, to see how much you're going to get and working that way. Again, there's a podcast on that, on the malt COA.
And just also quickly say, it's not always a bad thing.
It's not at all.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier when you started talking about something else, Czech Pilsners and whatnot. I've got it in there.
Yeah.
And also, we all love butter popcorn, so again,
exactly.
setting. It's set and setting. But yeah, in most beer styles, get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be pretty, it can be pretty off-putting to some people.
It's the mouthfeel that gets me, to be honest. Cool.
All right, so that's what one do you want to do next? Pick one, Jethro.
Fire some out, buddy. Well, we mentioned it in the previous pod, or the first half of this pod. How are we doing at Acetaldehyde? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, good old Acetaldehyde. Nice. I wrongly labelled it as DMS. It's emulsion. I think that's the one that you get for emulsion paint.
My descriptor for Acetaldehyde would be emulsion-based paint, or my other one would be the scraping of a pumpkin seed, which is quite a distinctive smell, actually, if you've ever scraped a pumpkin. The one I would say that I would try and ask people to avoid is saying green apples.
Interesting, because that's the one that gets... Yeah.
People say, it smells like green apples all the time. There's a few other different flavours within beer that are, apple-like. And who's going to sit here and talk about the differences between a Granny Smith, a Jazz Apple, and a Brayburn?
I'm actually a massive apple nerd, so I actually probably could.
We'll talk about that later. What's the really dark red apple called?
Red Delicious.
I don't know. That was a test you passed. But I tend to try and lean people away from talking about apples when they're describing beer flavours, because apples are so varied and we'll get different things in our head. So if we're talking about acetaldehyde, I tend to go for emulsion-based paint. So this one, when you get it in beer, is going to come from quite a long sniff, so a large inhale. So whereas we were talking earlier about things like DMS that come from quite far away and you need to kind of be smelling fresh air beer. Acetaldehyde, you want to get your nose right in, you're going to get that emulsion-based paint. It also has a drying, astringent mouthfeel as well, which in higher levels can be quite unpleasant, to be honest. Although I will say at a small level, if you have a little bit of acetaldehyde, it makes the little puckering of your mouth, let's say, makes it you want to drink more. So you have another sip, and then it's even worse, and you go again, and then suddenly you've drunk your whole pint, and then the barman thinks that you thought it was delicious. And because it'll often sit alongside beers maybe that are quite hoppy as well, and it's like, oh, this is so bitter. It's emulsion-based paint tends to be the descriptor I try and say. So it's produced by yeast during fermentation. It's part of ethanol production, so it's going to be there at points. You just kind of don't want it there at the end of fermentation. So that's why I recommend if you're doing your D test, it's a good time that you're going to be aware of acetaldehyde as well. A few times when we had it in the brewery, we would be assessing for diacetyl, and in our not heated sample on our D test, we would also remark if there was acetaldehyde at any point. And if you have got it to the point where you need to get, towards the end of fermentation, I'd say you're looking to krausen if you need to, but it's not essential, or not essential, but it's quite a big move to make. You talk about it a bit more as the...
Rausen and krausen. You can solve just about every cellar problem with Rausen and krausen.
Go on.
For me, acetaldehyde, the one I really... It clicked into my head was, if you ever go into a pub, probably definitely in the countryside,
Yeah.
and on like a Wednesday, and the cask has been on since Saturday, and it's just they pour you the pint. I mean, you should never order one on a Wednesday. That's like the golden rule, right? But you order one, you get it, and it just stinks of emulsion paint, and it's because you get a lot of oxygen in pack as well, right? That's gonna be a
That's the second time it comes around.
It kind of ruined cask beer for me for a bit, because I'd be like, if I could smell it, because sometimes you don't know, right? You don't know how long you can ask how long the cask's been on, but if it's anything more than a few days, I almost guarantee you're going to be getting a good level of acetaldehyde. But yeah, I mean, if you're wanting to avoid it in process, I mean, it's a part of every beer, right? It is a compound, an aldehyde that's made during fermentation, so you're always going to get some level of it. I think it's like, pitched correctly and healthily, so it's pretty much you're going to get a lot more than just acetaldehyde, but it can be a good one. And it does mature away, so just avoid dropping yeast too early or chilling too soon. If it's in there, you can generally leave it and it will mature out with yeast still in suspension or still working. And I think I've only ever really experienced it a handful of times from my memory, and nothing that scarred me anyway. And generally just it matures away. It's a good thing to detect. Well, it's a good thing to taste throughout fermentation sometimes on certain beers, because you'll start to pick up these in high levels, and then you'll know when it's not there as well, which I always think helps a lot.
Nice. One of the main contributors to a hangover as well.
Really? Because in Germany they say Diacetyl is a... I've heard that from a bunch of German brewers who say that Diacetyl is the reason. I think I've even read it in Kunst, which is... I don't know why on earth it'd be in there, but in like... the brewing book of the world. Jethro's looking at me like, the hell is Kunst? Yeah, and I'm pretty sure they say that Diacetyl is a cause of a hangover as well. Is acetaldehyde...
Acetaldehyde is definitely one of the things that gives you a hangover.
Really?
It's like a poison to your body. It's what...
No way.
Some people are like genetically disposed to get like red face when they're drinking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They get. I remember I have a friend that gets like a really red chest. He calls it the reds. And acetaldehyde is probably one of the things that they're like poison in your body. Yeah, it's not nice. Also in cigarettes as well. It's one of the negative aspects of smoking.
One of the few. Well, I didn't know that. I did not know that was one of the reasons it caused a headache. Oh wow! I mean, that even puts me off even all those 3-day-old cask bitters even more now.
Cool. Fire some more at me, dude.
What about? I think we could probably after this discuss some. I don't know, like micro-based ones or micro. But let's before. What about trans-2-nonyl? This is one that got a lot. I remember reading a lot about. Got a lot of hype in craft beer a while back. But what about trans-2-nonyl?
Trans-2-nonyl. Papery.
Papery.
Papery, which just like smelling a nice book in an old bookshelf. So trans-2-nonyl is going to be like quite drying in your mouth as well. It's going to have a stringency to it, particularly on your so it's orthonasal. So orthonasal means when you breathe in, you're going to get it, and you're going to smell that lovely papery book. Also on your retronasal, which is when you breathe outwards, and which is actually a time we should have discussed this earlier as well when we were talking about how to taste beer. But there are some aromas that just the heat of being inside your body, and then on the way out you smell them again. For example, metallic. You can't actually smell a beer as metallic, or it has to be crazy strong, but from the top. But if you drink the beer, you get it afterwards, which is pretty wild. And you see it when you're assessing people, and if they can smell things, there can be a beer that literally tastes of a copper coin, and they don't realise because they're panicking, and they're not assessing the beer by drinking it as well. So that's on the retronasal, which as is the same for trans-2-nonyl, so papery. So it's formed from the oxygenation of lipids during work production, and it binds to the proteins. It's not a bad thing. It's going to happen when it's in there, but the reason that it comes out is normally with high DO in your pack. So when we're talking about shelf life, tasting recently, it's something that you're not going to be tasting it during production. So in your stop go and your like taste gates, it's not there. But if you're taking cans once a month and trying them and realising that whatever batch or even SKU or all of your beer is happening, then it's probably an indicator of a DO problem if you're not lucky enough to have meters and whatnot. Etc. Which,
do you detect it a lot in craft beer?
Some cask ale often, or cask beer. I do in some craft breweries, you know. There's a few I can think of that you get it. It's just like, you go into some breweries and you can't believe what they're doing in there. And sorry, that sounds so horrible, doesn't it? And sometimes, sometimes I do. Not in like higher level stuff. People that where they're more concentrating. There's a few pale ales I can think of that I've had it, you know, by chance. But yeah, you do definitely see it around. It's not just a scary one. And obviously, like home brewers are going to get it, etc., etc. But Papery, I wouldn't. It's also one that you can confuse with a musty flavour. Yeah, which when you're training on different off flavours, they always get confused. But musty, it comes more from like mould or from like the packaging of raw materials. So something's been stored in cardboard or new wood.
And the crown caps?
Yeah, can do from the crown caps.
I remember. Just like going back to my training this.
Yeah, Chris just turned his hand. I thought you were turning a knob to say speak louder, but you were just, you had a light bulb moment.
I was thinking,
musty is a slightly different aroma. And it's actually the smell of a cork as well. So, you know, when they give you wine in the restaurant and they say, you smell it, that isn't them saying, do you think this wine is nice? Do you want to buy it? You have to buy it if it's been opened. The only reason you don't is if it's been corked and it smells musty.
And you can smell the cork, right? You smell it. I remember that from the training as well.
So yeah, it's like, ooh.
Thanks. Thanks, it makes me feel like it.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you're assessing the wine. In fact, they're just saying, can you smell that this wine isn't corked? Because you can't send it back if it's been opened. So yeah, kind of trans to a little bit. It's reasonably simple.
Yeah, because I was trained on it, but I don't recall ever picking. Well, no, I don't recall picking up too often in craft beers. So I asked you, and I was just wondering if it was more because I'm not thinking about it or not picking it up, or it's harder to detect with. But you said you get it on the taste more on the retronasal more than the.
It's really drying. If you actually get it in a beer properly, it's really drying and makes drinking like hard work. Yeah,
keep my eye out.
Well, and you're not going to get it with like macro products because they're obviously so good with their DO.
Yeah. What about... Okay, let's move into some more contamination-based off flavours. One, which I probably quite interesting, a bit gross, is butyric acid.
Butyric acid is everyone's favourite one to talk about.
It is,
It's gross.
Yeah, it's totally gross,
Well, it's... butyric acid, the flavour descriptor for it is baby sick, which is obviously disgusting, and if ever you smell a baby be sick, then you're like, oh god. It's quickly worth saying, and this just, I know we keep occasionally saying this about flavours being like subjective or biased to other things.
Yeah.
Butyric acid is actually intentionally added to a lot of American chocolates. So Hershey's chocolate is like the main example. There's some like ridiculous story about when they first started making chocolate in America, and in the UK our dairy farms are right next to where they make chocolate because the UK is not that big, but in the US their dairy farm might be so far away from where they were making the chocolate that the milk would sour en route. Well, actually no, I think they soured it deliberately at the beginning so it could then travel without getting any worse. So butyric would be in there, an aroma of butyric, and then they'd make the chocolate and it would be associated with all the other things that were nice about chocolate. So American chocolatiers from then onwards would put, like, not Hershey's, like brands will add butyric acid to their chocolate so that it smells like what American people think chocolate tastes like. Like if you compare a Cadbury Dairy Milk to a Hershey's, smell it.
Yeah.
And so it's not always a bad thing.
That's
like
true.
It does exist, but when it comes to beer, it's not a pleasant thing. I don't think it's any beer styles that you're going to want it in. It smells like baby sick or rancid oil.
Bailey's Irish Cream?
Yeah, that's a good one. It is.
That's how I would remember it.
Yeah.
It smells like Christmas. Bailey's on ice.
Your example's better than the Hershey's one.
I don't know. That was a really good story. You had me on the hook. That was good.
Man. Yeah, the Bailey's one is true. The taste of Christmas.
It's the taste of Christmas.
Yeah.
Baby sick.
And it has a little bit on it. And once you've trained on butyric, it's 100% you can get it in there. And it just shows the different places you get it. But, I mean, if you get your session IPA and it has a little bit of that aroma on it, it's not pleasant in any way. So, yeah, it's bacterial spoilage, but it can be produced quite early on with kind of sweet wort. If you're adding sugar additions as well, it can come around from the sugars in that.
Really?
And then, just spoilage in your beer afterwards. I think when we talk about butyric as well, we're kind of like, I would extend the conversation to be talking about like other acid producing bacteria that's going to be in your your potential beer. I definitely won't say where I had this, but in the past brewery, whether I worked there or I was consulting or whatever, we had some issues with some like Megasphere acid producing that was just like incredibly horrible, and it had evaded micro, and we had to do like a full breakdown investigation of the brewery, and yeah, it was
a thing of nightmares.
Yeah, 100%. The thing of nightmares, and prevalent in, it arrived in cans, it arrived in kegs, and because of the sensory of it and the assessing, and we narrowed it down to batches that had been put through particular processes around the site. So opening cans and whatnot, and finding the Megasphere, which has the aroma of like similar kind of baby sick, maybe more like wet dog. It's horrible. In fact, when we first discovered it, we didn't know what it was, so we gave it the number 2064 because that was the first batch that we found it in. So we just called it 2064 on site. So we were looking for 2064, and it was Megasphere has a biofilm, so it's
oh my god!
So it's like around in water, so you can like go down your drain, and then you can suddenly be spraying. You're spraying around the brewery, and it's in a drain, and suddenly you've sprayed it up to something else, and it's gone into somewhere else, and it was everywhere. Well, actually, wasn't everywhere. We found it in a particular place, but this is a conversation to ask me about more if you'll ever see me, because I don't want to drop people in it. But yeah, it was picked up later from us on shelf life testing, and we managed to withdraw a lot of the product that was out in the market so that it didn't get out there. But yeah,
that's funny.
So bacterial spoilage basically. So all these things are hygiene. Yeah, and we were discussing earlier when we were getting some lunch before we did this that so many of the problems in the brewery are just like, are you cleaning enough?
Yeah.
Should you be cleaning more? And
yeah.
We were talking about the annoyance of people saying, I've not had a problem yet.
Yeah.
And for that reason, I'm not going to change my processes. Like, you know.
Have you found the problem? That's probably the better question, right?
Yeah, exactly that. So yeah, butyric or just general acid producing bacteria is generally a hygiene issue.
Yeah. What about phenolics? So there's two types of phenolic that I'm aware of. Jethro, you can definitely tell me there's different. The ones that are quite common.
Yeah, the common ones we always talk about are like Phenolic 4VG and 4EP. VG is like generally a positive thing if you get it. So it's going to be in some like German style wheat beers. German style? Or just wheat beers. So I've gone off. It's been a while since I drank a wheat beer, if I'm honest.
I don't drink them.
Yeah, I do actually love different wheat beers. Yeah, Phenolic 4VG is going to give you like some cloves and those beautiful aromas. Whereas I think because we're leading on from spoilage, you're probably talking about Phenolic 4EP.
Yes.
Which is more commonly, we're just going to call it Brett. You mind me just saying Brett?
Yeah, knows what that is.
Yeah, so it's going to come normally from Brettanomyces yeast through fermentation if you want it, or probably could be there if you don't want it, because it's not going to come from any Saccharomyces yeast. So, or it might be in post pack. So that's just like a wild yeast contamination. Now you're going to get the aroma of Phenolic 4EP or Brett is going to be, the common descriptor is a band-aid, a plaster, or I mean, people say horse blanket. I personally have never seen. I don't really know what a horse blanket is. A blanket that a horse lies on. But people say horse blanket, and I get it. It does kind of smell like a horse. But a plaster, a band-aid, a horse blanket. So it's if a beer is not meant to have the aroma of 4EP or Brettanomyces, then you've got a real problem on your hands. But if you meant it, then fantastic. It's going to be one of the best beers that you guys are going to get to drink. But again, that's like the issue there is going to be your micro. So I go into so many breweries and they're doing no plating throughout, and they're sending off one in every 5 batches to someone to assess, but none of the 4 in between, which is cool. And I get that people don't have the money to do those things, but yeah, that's going to be a micro issue for sure.
Yeah.
And
this is where sensory is probably, to me, one of my favourite quality pillars, because it doesn't cost you much, and you can, some of this will be retrospective, right? So you found Brett in your beer, damage is kind of already done to some extent.
I mean, it doesn't have to be at the end, but yeah, you're right, go on.
Yeah, and I think it's just, it's free to do in a way, and you can just do it, and then you can assess everything. You can go deep dive after that. I think it's just that's why this is so powerful, because you can catch things maybe even before they go into pack, which is obviously the optimum time to catch something, should you. And yeah, that's why I really like sensory, because it's just, you can catch all of this without having to necessarily, I mean, plating is really good, but I mean, if you can't afford it, you don't have the equipment
for sure,
or the skills or the time, then this is just a good way of assessing when something is going wrong and when it isn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, hard agree. Fire away, my friend. We got them all on our little list. We wrote when we were having lunch earlier a couple of things that we might want to talk about if we were going to do it.
That's all the compounds I have written down. 5 compounds. I'm really doing 10.
Exactly, man. I used to train like 30 at a time. If anybody ever wants to talk with them, just get me on the phone. I quite like geeking out over a beer. Yeah,
so I think that's probably that's a good amount of compounds to go over in good detail. I don't know if there's any honourable mentions you want to add to that list, but I think that's pretty comprehensive of common ones. I
think the reason we wanted to talk about those a little bit, because what I think we were trying to do then was to say what they smell like, how they occur, and if possible how to fix them and whatnot. And the reason sensory works to pick up problems. I would also say that sensory is incredibly powerful for as a force for good. Like I've trained quite a lot on different hop aromas, and then so the way we're describing them now, in the same way you could do positive things or talk about the difference between grainy and malty. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they're different parts of the aromas that you get from malt that can be isolated, and if you learn the differences, then your dialogue becomes different. So I think it's worth saying that isolating particular things can also be for positive flavours. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time talking about the bad when we can use our noses to create a much better product as well as just stopping bad ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like something that I really want every brewer to do is to sit down and drink beer.
Yeah.
And talk about it, and I don't know, I'm waffling on.
But it leads us on to I think common mistakes within sensory. I think was something I wanted to discuss about, and maybe that is one of the key ones. Is the common mistakes is always be polite about other people's beer.
100%.
Well.
Yeah.
So be like, oh, this is disgusting. It's got diacetyl in, and then just you don't know if that's supposed to be there. It's not your place to say.
Yeah.
So just
always, I think I find myself often really frustrated with a person who is telling everyone so loudly their views and what they think in terms of what we're talking about here. Everybody's view is valid, and don't be outshouted by someone who's more senior than you or thinks they know more than you. Yeah, it's the power of 2 ears, 1 mouth. It's like listening and building what you're going to say before you say it.
Yeah. And maybe echo some of the things that you said in the first episode was, not succumbing to or not allowing influence to happen. So I get group discussions are great, but with sensory, just as Jethro said, if someone starts telling you this has got passion fruit in, even though it probably almost certainly doesn't, it will trigger in your head, and you'll be like, okay, now I'm beginning to get it. And it becomes quite hard and confusing. And also that person of influence in the brewery shouldn't be leading it. They shouldn't be. I've seen in places I've been where it's there'll be a group of people and it'll be the head brewer, production director, and then he'll say, this beer is okay. And then it's going to take someone pretty bold to stand up, and then it turns into more of a social thing, issue pointing out, rather than it being just a science, which it is. And I always think that's quite a common mistake is, it being led by someone who has that influence in the brewery.
Yeah, very much so. If you've got someone that can add it into their day, and obviously it's a luxury to have, but it's not a luxury actually. It should be a part of just generally setting up a quality program. I think in the UK we're really lax about it. If you go to the States, it's as essential as any other part of your quality program, and in many ways, they're ahead of us in the way they're making their beer, because they think about that. But yeah, cool, man.
Well, Jethro, is there anything else you want to throw into this mix?
Not really. That was really nice that you requested to pick my brain about things that I don't talk about too much anymore. But yeah, if anyone wants to have a chat or whatever, leave my contact details in the show notes. This kind of stuff, it's not what I talk about on a day-to-day, but I love talking about it over a beer. And if I ever come to the brewery, we can, I'm sure, catch up. But yeah, I would recommend anybody to go and buy some flavour standards from somewhere. Just look online and just train up a little bit, and then add it into your daily practice and program your SOPs. Yeah, don't be a stranger.
Yeah, I love that, and it's been really fun for me. Maybe we talked about it before. I've been out of brewery production environment for, I mean, big production environment for like, you know, two and a bit years now, I'd guess. So it was really refreshing being able to talk about sensory. I forgot how much I really loved it as a topic, and it used to be like second language to me in the brewery. It was so important to what we did, and we detected so many problems that probably talked about some, and it solved so many. It helped bring so many issues to our attention. We then solved. It was one of the better things that ever happened to me in my career was going through that sensory training. I think it was awesome. So really hope that everyone got to have a slice of that, what it's like.
I pick up some flavours. I'd also say go on to ASBC and just check out the methods for whatnot. And then, just spend some time researching.
And any questions, you can always know how to ask. You can ask me, you can ask Jethro, you can ask... Yeah. There's always a good outlet in case anyone has any questions. So, yeah.
Cool. Cheers, Chris.
Thank you so much, Jethro.
Cheers, everyone, mate.
See you later. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed the episode with Jethro. I really love two-parters because it really gives you the ability to go really deep into a subject. And I think sensory is such a fascinating and amazing subject. So really hope you enjoyed the episode. Please hit me up with your comments, feedback, suggestions for anything you want, any new topics. If you wanted to hear a different type of format, please let me know. You can always reach out to me over LinkedIn or Instagram. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Modern Brewer Podcast.